Welcome to episode 8 of AI, What the Tech, where we break down how artificial intelligence is reshaping higher ed, work, ethics, society, the whole thing. We're doing it all at this point. You can find us on Spotify, Apple Podcast, and wherever you get your shows. Just search AI, What the Tech, but make sure and put it on all caps. That's how you find it. Hit the follow button, leave us a rating or review, send us fan mail, do whatever, interact with us because we want to hear from you. And remember that your support helps more people find us, and the likes and shares as well as the follows help us do more on the platforms because that's the new economy. If you want to help more directly, check the episode description and you'll find a link for Buy Me a Coffee, or I'm using Angela's Hex the Patriarchy mug today, or I drink mint tea, buy us one of those. Yeah. So whether it's just one coffee or a full carafe, which is the options there, every little bit helps us produce new content and bring in guests and keep the conversation moving, because that's really what we're doing, right, Bhaskar?
Absolutely. And we'd like to thank Jeff Auger to be our first Patreon to buy us coffee. So shout out to you. Thank you so much.
Shout out to Jeff, who is in Costa Rica right now.
Oh, really? Hope you're having fun, Jeff. So last time we explored how faculty are navigating academic misconduct and AI detection fatigue, right? That was such an interesting episode.
Right. I thought it was great.
Yeah. But this time we're going to step outside the classroom a little bit and talk a little bit about infrastructure. So today's episode is about surveillance. I hope you're scared, Sean. Not just in law enforcement or national security, but in learning management systems, online proctoring tools, student engagement dashboards, workplace compliance softwares. My mind is already blown.
Right. Well, I'm kind of excited, and it's partly because, I don't wear a foil hat, but this is where I start sounding like somebody who wears a foil hat with surveillance and AI. And I think it's partly because I read a lot of science fiction. I still read a lot of science fiction. But, just one quote stuck out to me as we were discussing the topic of the podcast. And there's a book by William Gibson. It's called Zero History. And people were liberated by being freed from a broader surveillance system. And the quote always stuck with me. And it was, let me just read it directly. The future is always here. It's just not evenly distributed. And really what that means is it means that for me with AI, the future is going to include facial recognition, algorithms that score your focus on online platforms if we're in education, being able to track people. I know I read a couple of articles, and there's a book, just to do a book plug. I've been reading this one. I don't know if you're familiar with that one. He talks about how surveillance systems are being used in different governments, et cetera. And so this is where I get a little creeped out. But at the same time, there's a positive side to this as well. And I think our guest today is going to talk about that.
All right.
So, we can use cybersecurity to secure files, but at the same time, it flags your behavior. Right. So that's the double-edged sword that she refers to, right?
Yes, that's right. And just going a little off topic, I don't know if you've heard about the jailbreak at New Orleans. And how they've used facial recognition to find a few of the people on the streets, which is pretty fascinating.
It's creepy.
It's true.
I think it's good they catch the escapees. Don't get me wrong.
But you also have to think they've been running facial recognition on everybody.
Right. Well,
so
these things. Right?
Oh yeah, absolutely. Now we're asking the questions. What does it mean to be protected by machines that are also judging you? Now, what happens when security becomes prediction and privacy becomes a data point? Now, to help navigate these questions, we are joined by Dr. Indira Dutta, who I also call my wife, an expert in cybersecurity, applied cryptography, human factors, and legal issues in digital systems. She's worked with institutions on cybersecurity protocols and understands how policy, pedagogy, and technology converge. And I'm super excited, and I'm a little scared as well, not just because she's my wife, but because she's going to talk about really funky things today. Let's go for it. What do you say?
Let's do it.
All right. Hello, Indira.
Hello.
Hey, Indira.
Hi.
So welcome. Thank you so much for doing this with us. We really appreciate it. So now we're just going to dive right into it. Now, privacy in education and cybersecurity is no longer just about who can see your files, right? It's
Yeah.
about who decides what your behavior means. Yeah.
Yes. So let me just, start by thanking both of you for inviting me here. It's truly a pleasure. And what you both are doing, it's really awesome. And like, this is what we really need at this point of
Mhm.
time, more conversations and, more public opinion. And also I'd like to thank you for the swag. I have it. I'm just not wearing it. And yeah. So yeah, thank you. Thank you all. I just wanted to take a moment before we,
Sure, sure, sure.
start.
Well,
Yeah.
thank you so much. We appreciate that. But before
Yes.
you
Thank you.
start, let's throw the question at you, right?
Yes. Yeah.
How do you rethink consent and privacy when modern AI doesn't disclose or
Yeah.
disclose your profile or info?
So yeah. So before we jump into that, let's start by looking at a proper definition of privacy in the cybersecurity world. It is really refers to the right of the individual so that they can control how their personal information is getting collected to start with, and then how it's getting used, how it's getting shared to a third party, or how it's getting stored, and even how long we are keeping them before we are destroying them, for example. So all these steps in all these steps, the individuals, the users have a right to know how it's happening, right? And that's what I feel missing in terms of AI systems or AI surveillance systems, because we have, as you know, we have like specific privacy laws in terms of different sectors. Like we have HIPAA for health sectors, GLBA, the Gramm-Leach-Bliley Act for financial sectors, even some location-based acts like CCPA, GDPR. But the like understanding of AI surveillance system, or the idea of AI and the implications of those, are not mentioned in these privacy acts yet. So what we know that all these AI systems, they are building very detailed behavior, right, of the users
Mm.
and behavioral profile. That's what they're creating. And they're not taking the consent in a traditional sense. It's not like they're giving us a form or a paper asking us to fill that out with our habits, with our interests, our weaknesses. It's not like that. So what they're doing is they are looking at the metadata, the inferred pattern, or the predictive models they're using there to guess who we are, right?
So are you
And
saying that whenever I'm checking that box, allowing them to agree to every all their terms and conditions, I'm not agreeing to their AI using our
no, so like,
metadata?
yeah, so when we are checking that box, we are doing it to be like, the for example, the website you are using, they have put that there to be compliant with the privacy acts, right, which are existing privacy acts. And they did not take into the consideration the the again the implications of AI there. So
Mhm.
a lot of times it's just we are not really reading deep into that, and not into taking consideration of what would happen with this inferred behavioral profilings, right? So yes, you're saying
So the
something.
end
Mhm.
user license agreement on my phone and everything else, doesn't it allows some data transfer back and forth, but I'm not necessarily agreeing to the level or detail of data that AI can possibly use. I'm just trying, because I'm not the
Yes.
computer guy. I'm trying to figure out how creeped out I should be,
Yes. So
honestly.
yeah, like as far as my knowledge, we did not include the AI surveillance in those acts yet. There was
Right,
no
right.
revision yet for those privacy acts. So what they're doing is they're inferring the subtle digital cues we are giving, like how long you are hover over a link, how
Hmm.
your typing rhythm changes all of a sudden, or what time of the day you log into the system. So things like that, which is like really tricky, I would say, because for when we talk about privacy acts, again, I'm going back to that because we are trying to compare
Hmm.
both of these.
Yeah.
We have these concepts like data minimization, right? Like we want to collect only the amount of data we need for that particular thing. And
Yeah.
also we want to have transparency, like we want to inform the users how their data is getting used and all those things. And then we want to have control so that the users can access, modify, and delete those data, right? But do we get
Right.
to do that with the data AI is gathering from us? No, we don't get to do that, right? We don't really even know what they are gathering, what kind of information they're gathering from us.
Well,
So
All right, let's shut down everything. This
yeah.
is really.
Well, if I could follow up, because this came up, right, Bhaskar, we talked about this at the Florida conference because NVIDIA, IBM, Google, they were all talking about
Oh
this.
yeah.
And they kept using the word data almost like it was money. And when I hear you say that
Yes, money.
they are inferring,
yeah,
it's almost like an inferred consent or inferred implied consent
yeah,
by participating, by using this technology. I've already said, all right, well, you can track this stuff.
Hmm.
So, well, we're going to treat data more broadly and say, well, it's this stuff too, but we didn't ask you about it. I
yeah,
mean, is
yeah,
that's horrible.
Well, it sounds
yeah.
crazy, right?
So
So from what I understand, it's more like they're gonna take data from you, but the amount of the inference that they're doing from their data, that like they have no legal consent for that. So they're just telling us, tell me how. So for example, like a smart thermostat, right?
mhm,
So there are many things that you can infer from a smart thermostat data.
yes.
So they haven't taken consent from us to infer those data. Is that what you're trying to say?
Yes. So what I feel that we really need to go towards, like, instead of informed consent for privacy, what, because it's very straightforward when you are talking about
Hmm.
consent in terms of privacy acts,
Mhm.
that okay, I'm sharing this information, and what you can do with this, it will be on me, right? I will tell you, yes, you can use this or not use this. But we don't, like, what with AI systems, the problem is we don't even know how those systems are designed a lot of times, because
Right.
we don't know which
There.
algorithm they're using, how
Right.
much
Hmm.
they're
That's
inferring.
true.
So maybe from an informed consent model, we go towards informed system design concept, where we
Hmm.
exactly know how it's built, what algorithm they're using there, what kind of information they're actually trying to see or infer from there. And we need to have an option where we add, like, the right not to be inferred upon, maybe, instead of that opt-in opt-out option. We
Hmm.
also need to add an option like that. I guess that's what will happen in the future.
What it sounds like what they're doing is they're capitalizing on that old, well, you didn't say I couldn't
Yeah. Right.
sort of
Yeah.
Right.
approach,
Yes.
which is a grab.
Hmm.
That is
It is
that
almost
is
like a smash and grab. Yes. Hmm.
and the reason that creeps me out is students, and I don't know if it's a cultural thing, but they seem to be less concerned about privacy, I think, than some of us who are longer in the tooth are.
Hmm.
They seem to be, oh, well, I've got nothing to hide, whatever. And culturally, it seems like we're moving more in the direction where we
Yeah.
don't think that's a big deal, but I kind of think it's a big deal, right? Am I
Yeah.
crazy?
And I think
Yeah.
social media has a lot to do with that. Like, the
Right.
younger generation, their whole life is in front, and everybody can see their life in the social media. So they feel that, we have nothing to hide, maybe. It's already out there.
Well, now it lasts forever. I mean,
Yeah.
like we have this
True.
conversation with my kid, and he doesn't have social media. We don't
Hmm.
allow him
Okay.
to. Uh, but we try to explain. I say, yeah, I did a bunch of stupid stuff when I was a teenager, but the difference between when I did it and when you do it is when I did it, people forget.
Mm.
When you do it, it can last forever.
Yep.
And that's just, it's crazy to me. Anyway, I'm
Yeah.
not trying to drift. I think I'm right to be paranoid at this point.
We all need to be a little bit paranoid when it comes to security. Honestly.
That's right. So, well, we've thought about consent and privacy. I mean, now there's eye tracking. If you just apply it to higher ed, there's eye tracking during
Hmm.
online exams, the behavioral dashboards, they track keystrokes, etc. it's baked into the infrastructure itself. So
Yeah.
what you're talking about sounds more like the metadata stuff. Is that metadata as well, or that sounds more direct, doesn't it?
Yeah, so I think what you are saying is about the passive surveillance systems. If the educational institutions just add some kind of passive surveillance system in their LMS or in their system, how that will affect the privacy of the students and, the decisions they're making, this kind of thing. So, again, I feel that's debatable because, most of the times these systems are kind of invisible, right? We can't really
Right.
see them. And it's not like, for example, they're using a passive surveillance system in their LMS, and a student is taking an exam. It's not like they can see a camera is watching them. It's not like, there is a, blink going on that it's getting recorded, or there is a webcam. It's like previously it was more like that. Like they were more aware physically that somebody is watching you. But now it's like almost like, it's invisible. They don't feel it in them. Like if it makes sense what I'm saying.
Yeah.
It's like when we proctor exams, the students can see us, that we are sitting there, right, looking at
Mhm.
them. But now it's like, no one is there, but I'm getting watched. Still, it's a different kind of feeling, I want to say. So, and the impact can be huge as well, because the students are getting flagged by these algorithms they don't
Mhm.
know that
Mhm.
exist, based on the data they never realized they were giving away, right? They didn't have
Right.
any idea. So we call that like silent profiling, um, in a situation like this. And honestly, the legal side of this is also very shady, I want to say, because all these platforms often just hide all the invasive stuff in the long user agreements, which a lot of times we don't even read, right? Like even now when we
Mhm.
agree to the privacy policy, or we don't really read through each and every line. If the schools are just signing off and adding those in their LMS system, and those tools are collecting behavioral data, sometimes even biometric information, right?
Right.
And the language is very vague there. We can't really know what's happening, and there is very little to no oversight, really, right? No real public conversation happened, no peer reviews happened of using those tools. So again, like, I want to thank you both again for that, because this is what we need: more public conversation, so
Mhm.
that I hope, like, more we talk about it, we will reach towards a solution from there, right? And I think one more thing I wanted to mention here is that, like, how it can be dangerous and not fair, because, like, students come from different
Right.
background.
Mhm.
Mm.
Yeah.
So, for example, students from racial minority backgrounds, lower income families, some from neurodivergent communities, even sometimes,
Mhm.
like, the internet is shady, right? My internet is not working well.
Well, it's always shady.
So, then the students are getting flagged or penalized for that, right? So, it's not only about privacy, it's about almost bias, right? And
Right.
that's something I think we need to talk more about in this area.
Well,
I'm scared to ask any more questions, Sean.
I want to follow up with one, and it goes
Yeah.
back to more of the social side of it. And once again, it seems to me that if these are baked into the systems, that we're referring to them as passive surveillance systems, which I think is a great way to talk about them. And we don't have vetting. Is that just essentially putting us at more risk of normalizing this kind of authoritarian? The system itself is determining kind of how we think about privacy. Is it become? Here's what I have in mind. Not to interrupt myself, but it's more like in 1984. There's the phrase "Big Brother is watching."
Mhm.
Is that becoming more normalized now? I mean, it goes back to the question even about the students not worrying about uh, privacy, and what's the legal implication of that? I mean, and what's the human implication, and what's the social implication of us just getting accustomed to this?
Yeah.
Does
So,
that make sense? I'm just terrified.
So yeah, like I was also thinking, like, when you gave me this topic to talk about, and I was thinking that why we don't have like a specific law, or like a, I don't know, a very a strong way of looking at it, right? For
Mhm.
different
Right.
ideas. Why not yet? So, I was looking at like how privacy acts kind of evolved over the time. When I talk to my students about this, we only not only talk about in terms of educational institutions, right? A lot of times we are talking about organizations, like, other
Right.
companies, other in a bigger picture, and those organizations have surveillance system as well, right? If
Hmm.
like the employee is working well, if they are doing something else in the work time, and
Right.
how that works. So when I talk about surveillance system, we can actually include all those ideas as well in the discussion. And now, getting back to the privacy acts we were discussing, that how it kind of evolved. Like if we take an example of the COPPA Act, right? Like the Children's Online Privacy Protection Act. So that
Hmm.
act was actually got introduced in 1998, right? It was passed in 1998, but over the years it's been changed, revised, and even updated to respond new challenges. And in 2019, that's when it created a big buzz, when the Federal Trade Commission and YouTube reached a $170 million settlement. And
Mm.
what happened is, after that, YouTube had to start treating all videos made for kids as subject to COPPA regulation. So now
Yeah.
when you try
I
to
have to click on that. I know, yeah, whenever
yeah,
you're
when you try to
uploading.
Yeah.
upload a video in YouTube, it asks you if it's made for kids or not, right? If you
Mm,
click on that, then okay, you are
Hmm.
compliant. You have to be compliant with the COPPA Act. So the reason I'm talking about this, and the point I'm trying to make this, is that laws like these usually don't get updated until something major happens, right?
Right.
So something
Right.
that speaks like which sparks like public outcry, people are talking about it, or results in a big lawsuit as a result. And then
Hmm.
that's when the federal agencies really start to pay attention and take action. So honestly, I think we are just waiting for that big moment. And when it comes to AI surveillance, so once it hits, only then we will see a like a serious push to rethink and rewrite our privacy laws.
I,
So
it's
I,
very
yeah.
yeah.
interesting that you bring that up.
Yeah, I was just chuckling, not because it's funny, but I want to know how bad whatever the thing is that causes the change in the law will be, right? Because
Yeah.
it seems to me with all the surveillance and all the data tracking and all that stuff that
Mm,
whatever happens that causes that collective social response
Hmm.
yeah,
would have to be
it's
pretty
scary.
significant at this point,
And
particularly because we're accustomed to it.
right,
Yeah.
and this kind of reminds me of like how airport security laws have changed over the
Yes.
years, right?
Right.
Yeah.
So things have happened, and now you can't take water on the plane anymore. Something else has happened. Now you have to open your shoes. Something
Yes.
Right.
else happened. Now you have to open your belt.
And
Yeah.
those were pretty bad things, right? I
Right,
mean,
yes, it was really nasty things that
Yeah.
happened, right?
Yeah.
So again, like, it's just the concept of security is so abysmal sometimes that you have to wait for the bad
and
thing to happen before
Yeah.
yeah,
Hmm.
it's reactionary.
it
I
is
mean,
absolutely reactionary.
we talk about it in our discipline that a problem doesn't become a problem until there's a critical mass of concern over it.
Mm,
So it's kind of a social construction of a problem.
Yeah.
That's why I'm worried in some respects about how big this problem is going to have to be
Hmm.
and what it's going to look like because it will be, honestly, I think it'll be pretty bad.
right.
I don't know what it'll look like. I'm paranoid. Like I said, I'm not a foil hat wearer, but when it comes to this, I might be. So,
Yeah.
Right. But moving on to our next part. So, what do you think faculty and administrators, what should they know about the validity and risks of these
mhm.
surveillance systems? Like, because mouses are being tracked, your typing cadence is being tracked, your
Hmm.
browser history is being tracked, and it's like where should faculty be at, according to you?
What I feel is that it's kind of a myth. I feel that the behavioral surveillance systems are really scientific, because I feel the truth is that many of them are built on very shaky, unvalidated metrics, like how fast you can type, where your eyes are moving, the way you are again moving your mouse, things like that. So they can be influenced by so many things, the students' anxiety, disability, again the cultural differences we were discussing before. So, and the models behind these tools, they are often complete black boxes also, like we don't really know a lot of times what's going on. So instructors might not even realize that a proctoring system is actually quietly assigning students a suspicion score, right? And again, that can create
Cute,
a
turn it in, turn it in.
Yeah, yeah.
Mhm.
that could be a serious issue. So during pandemic, have you heard about the tool Proctorio? That created a lot of buzz during that time, because it became one of the most widely used remote proctoring tools that time. And students
Mm.
at the University of Illinois and the other campuses, they quickly raised an alarm, because the system was flagging completely like normal behavior, looking away from the screen, or just shifting posture, bad lighting. So again, students with dealing with anxiety or neurodivergence, they were they were flagging them. And when they tried to challenge the software's decision, they were told that the algorithms were proprietary, right? So they will not be able to know what's happening.
Yeah.
And that's not just frustrating, it's dangerous, right? And now imagine if you add AI into this mix, it will become more complex, more less accountable. Like we can't really find who is responsible for this, right? And the risk can just grow exponentially. So to answer your question, that what the administrators and instructors should do here, I feel that first of all, they need to have peer reviewed evidence that the system is valid, reliable, and they don't have any kind of bias. And secondly, maybe a clear, transparent explanation again of what data is getting collected, how they are getting collecting it, where it is getting used, how long it's stored, all the points we have mentioned at the beginning in terms of privacy, right? So
Mhm.
this kind of, I think, needs to be figured out before we actually welcome a surveillance tool like that. I also want to mention one more thing here. Now that we're talking about like surveillance in cybersecurity, we have a term called fingerprinting, right? And it's very common. Like we try to fingerprint all the users, all the devices those users are using, so that from the network admin's point of view, think of it this way: they want to know who is getting connected to the network by using which device, right? And they are doing that so that they can see if something unusual is happening, right? And they can flag it. So what we are trying to do here is we are trying to detect a threat. We are not trying to constantly monitor the users or those devices. So there is a, I feel there is, this is the fine line between these two. We need to figure out that how much do we do really, like detection, threat detection could be uh, okay, but then going above that, where you're constantly monitoring someone, needs more, I think, more clarity and more transparency.
No,
Yeah.
just to go on a tangent real quick, if I may,
Yeah.
because I'm trying to translate it into the non-tech kind of way of thinking. Because I've started digging in on AI. I'm even taking some certification classes, and cybersecurity is one of the classes, which I dread. But the question I have is when they create these systems that are meant to flag, they sounds like that's where the discrimination gets in. But
Mhm.
they have to presume something about normality, right? What is a normal behavior?
Yeah.
And so my understanding from what you're saying is they don't disclose that.
Yeah.
How do you know? People don't make eye contact all the time. It's
No.
not like a CBS series,
It's true.
like what was it, Lie to Me, where they were constantly reading behavioral cues.
Mhm.
Yeah.
That's not how it works. People look away. People behave differently. They move differently. So any system that would immediately say this is a flag would have to presume something within the range of normal behavior
Yeah.
to identify the flag. Does that make sense?
Yes.
And so they're not transparent about this. They don't tell us, well, this is how we know it's not normal. I mean, first, the definition of normal is with people is always sort of out the window. But
Yeah.
anyway, go ahead. They're not telling us anything about that.
No, so like that's what we I was saying that we really, it's kind of a black box. We don't really know how exactly what's going on uh inside the system, right? So,
Right.
and also, like, you were talking about the range of normal. How do we decide that? So a lot of bias, I feel, that gets into the system by the person who built that system, maybe, or the
Right.
data
Mm.
data
Are
they
they
have.
normal?
Yeah, or the data they have collected, which data pool they have used, right? So it's
Right.
very uh, we can't really, I don't think a machine can take that decision. That's, I think, my
Right.
argument. Like, they can give us either, always I say that to my students as well. A machine can always tell us if it is 0 or 1, but if it's 0.5, 0.75, 0.3, that's where a human intervention is needed. They need to
That's like the
really
gray
figure
area
out
almost,
the
right? Yeah.
gray zone. Yeah. So,
Mm.
yeah.
Well, thank God they know what normal is because now we can call everybody in all the social science and counseling disciplines and just say, "Hey, we've solved it." You know, go home, everybody. I mean, that's how absurd that is
Funny.
to assume something about behavior. But anyway, that's enough of the tangent. I was just that's curious to me.
It is crazy.
Yeah.
Well, now let's get into like talk about like is it cybersecurity or is it control? Because on campuses and in companies, surveillance is often justified like you were saying, like through safety, right? We're just being safe, flagging unusual behavior, guarding against threats, reducing liability. So where's that line between cybersecurity protocols and unjustified human surveillance? And
Yeah.
what are the safeguards, especially in education, since we talk more about AI in education. Where's that line?
Yeah, I think, as I was saying, that we can use a tool to detect threat in cybersecurity, but should we use that same tool to continuous monitoring? Maybe not. Like, that's when the ethical discussion comes into play. So we kind of need to find that line there, and all these tools kind of, they're evolve from just detecting threats to constantly monitoring behavior, which is maybe not right at this point of time. So we are not just keeping systems safe at that point of time, we are also surveilling people. And that's when security starts feeling more like control, right?
Right,
And
right.
this is why I guess we need clear safeguards, like things like, first of all, strong governance policies where we have representative from each sector. If we are talking about educational system, the teachers, the students, the policymakers, everyone, we need to have opt out option, of course, regular audits by independent experts, right? Like, to understand, like, uh, what we are doing, if it is you know right or not in terms of ethical decisions, and also if you are compliant with any kind of privacy laws or not.
Hmm.
So, yeah, so again, I think, like, especially in education, decisions about surveillance tools should not be only made by IT systems. It's not like, okay, the IT people said we can use this tool and we just add it to the system, because it's a lot more than that. The faculty, the students, legal folks, they all kind of need to join in and then take decisions. And personally, I feel, honestly, we just need to slow down a little bit. Just because a tool is available doesn't mean that we should just adopt it, right? So we need clear rules, collect only the data which is absolutely necessary. All those privacy concepts we were discussing, we need to be transparent. We need to have a system where we can challenge the algorithm, right? We can challenge the
Hmm.
tool that that the flag was not correct, or it did it unfairly. So I feel that the privacy and trust, they kind of go hand in hand, and without the clear boundaries, we will just lose both. That, like, if we can't
Hmm.
provide trust uh, with the privacy, it just doesn't make sense. I think we just need to get both of them on board.
It's interesting that you
Yeah.
say that we need to slow down, but
I agree with that, by the way.
right,
That's
Yeah.
right. That is
I was going
interesting.
to scream hallelujah, but
Yeah, like, as a technology person, I think, like, people would always think I'll be an advocate for AI, but I always say that, I say that to Bhaskar as well, that, I'm very happy that I study and research, because, when I'm teaching, I'm learning as well in the cybersecurity area, because I get to see the other side of the technology. I always get to question the technology, right? Like, how much you
hmm
should use it, how you should use it, so that it's safe, it's secure. It's not like there is a new technology and we just adopt it. We just need to uh, we can't take security or cybersecurity, privacy, whatever we call it, as an afterthought. It should go along with adopting a technology into our lives.
Right. So
Yeah.
that's very
No, I think
interesting
that's
that you
great.
say that, but that's not how it works in technology, right? So,
No.
for example, like when you want to build a bridge, when you want to say you're an engineer and you're trying to build a bridge, the first thing that you think about is how do I make this bridge secure, right? You
Yes.
think safety first.
Hmm.
After all safety concerns have been addressed, that's when you build the bridge, right? You don't just build the bridge and safety is never an afterthought.
Hmm.
But in technology, safety is always an afterthought, right? You build the bridge first,
Yeah.
and
Hmm.
then you start thinking about security concerns as people start complaining about it. Because if nobody's complaining about it, you don't have to fix anything, right? Because
Yes.
nobody knows something's wrong.
And I think there are two ways of thought process here. First of all, the amount of convenience you are getting out of it, right? Like, when you are
Hmm.
adding a technology to your daily life, anything you are doing, the convenience you are getting in return, it's so huge that we just kind of don't worry about the security part of it, I guess. Because if you don't take into consideration the safety while you are building a bridge, it's like, if something happens, you will die, right? That person will die. But
Hmm.
here, maybe you will not die. Maybe, there will be something will happen, your
It'd be
data will be
worse than that.
data will be stolen. Yes, it
Somebody
might.
will buy a house in my name or something.
Yeah, but
Right.
it happens. I won't say that it doesn't happen, it happens, but then a lot of times we don't understand the gravity, or uh, the seriousness of it. We feel that it's
Hmm.
not physically harming me, it's just, out
Mm,
there somewhere. We just don't think of it in that way. Then I
right.
think it's from the user's perspective as well, because if users stop using or buying new IoT devices, new, smart devices, then the companies will have to do something about it, right? But just because
Right.
it's convenient, we just give in, and okay, we just add it to our home network. We don't even change the password. The password is password.
Right,
So
right.
yeah, things like that, I guess, happen.
Well, it's interesting you mentioned that because I think Boscar's onto something with the notion that with technology we just sort of leap in, and it's analogous to all risk taking behavior with people. There's this tendency, like if you look at drugs, they don't think, all right, well,
Mm,
there's the potential for addictive capacity,
Yeah.
there's the potential for overdose,
mhm.
they just say, you know what, I want to feel good, I'm going to take it right now.
Right.
Yeah.
You're starting to see, I think, less skepticism over these technologies and these innovations, and more just like I've got to have the next best thing.
Mm,
Hmm.
And I wonder to what degree it is really convenience as much as it is just market driven consumptive behavior where we're just trying to keep up with everybody. And so it's being driven by the tech industry in that regard. That may be a separate discussion altogether, but the notion that we should show down, I think, or slow down is very, very important here
Mm.
because we're not
Yeah.
thinking about the long term consequences, which it sounds like that's what you're talking about,
Yeah.
right, Indira? Which is
Yes.
not, hey, do I get to click on this and make a cool video? It's more like, well, wait a minute, what does it cost me to join this
right.
social media
Yeah.
platform? What does it cost me
Yep.
to click on this and make this video? And what harm might it do? We don't think in those ways.
No. Yeah. It's like,
That's interesting.
we feel like that, yeah, we will be one of the million people who submitted their pictures there, maybe.
Not
So
with
nothing,
AI though, right?
yeah, nothing will happen. That's what I think our thought process is.
I like the distinction between privacy versus control. And if we move privacy and we use it to direct control, then it means control over what the machines can infer about you. I'm just sort of recapping.
Hmm.
So, do are you familiar with other campus policies or more broadly in education? Do they just not recognize this? And if they don't, you've already talked a little bit about what needs to change, but we're writing policy. So
Yeah.
what would we need to specifically include? Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Like,
So,
like if we're writing a policy, because we would have to write the policy not just for preventing academic misconduct. One part of the policy will have to do with IT and OIS and all these other systems as well, right?
yes, I think like here what we are, mostly focusing on is the AI surveillance part of it, right? So
Hmm.
unfortunately for that part, no, like, laws like FARPA, for example, for educational institutions, they just don't cover this. So FARPA is mostly about giving students access to their educational records, right? Not
Hmm.
about protecting them from what algorithms are inferring, for example, right? So
Hmm.
if a system starts predicting whether a student might fail based on things like eye movement, keystroke delays, that kind of judgment often kind of falls outside the legal oversight FARPA would cover, right? So
Right.
that's why we need updated frameworks, more, more policies to start with. Maybe then at one point of time we will revise our privacy acts, and then we will add the concepts of AI there. So we need more updated frameworks which will recognize that, if there is algorithmic inference, that is actually a form of surveillance, right? There should be clear rules around disclosure to start with. Again, informed consent, right not to be inferred upon, the one we were discussing. And then the right, again, the right to challenge or appeal decisions made by the algorithms. Those things I think needs to be specifically mentioned um, in the policies. And I feel that the schools can't just keep trusting the third party vendors
Mm.
blindly. uh,
we
institutions,
we know.
yeah,
Amen again, right?
they need to take like real responsibility, right?
But
So
see, I'm so happy that you brought that up, because that's what we've been doing throughout, right? We've just
Hmm.
been like, okay, so since Blackboard says this, it has to be true.
yeah,
Since Turnitin says this, and we as faculty, we have a
yeah,
sense of belief that probably somebody's vetted all of this,
yeah,
and so many other faculty members are doing it, so this will probably be correct, right?
yeah.
It's okay then, right?
Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
remember when you went to the conference in Florida, and you learned that Turnitin's process?
Right.
That's
So
that
that's
was
yeah, that's
shocking to
Absolutely.
me.
mhm.
Yeah.
Yeah, it
That
was
was,
shocking to a lot of other people that we've talked
yeah,
to. No,
I mean, that
we're
was my
not
comment there. Is it said, "Are you sure you want to do that?"
right.
Right?
yeah,
It's like,
So yeah,
like,
that's very interesting that you brought up the
yeah.
third
If
party
like
thing.
they
But
are saying that about themselves, like, they are not
right.
100% sure, or it's just a white paper, they don't have, like a proper science behind it. So it's
Right.
dangerous, I feel. Yeah.
oof, okay, just taking a moment to breathe.
Take a breath. Take a
I
breath.
know,
Yeah.
right? So coming into like governance or like ethics in development. So what structure can universities build? So do you think like review panels, ethics boards, or like faculty oversight? Like how, what's the structure that people, because everybody likes structure, and universities and faculty and students also like structure.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah,
Well, it
with
makes the rules easier, right? I
yeah.
mean,
Yeah.
it makes enforcement and
Hmm.
understanding easier.
I think, like, you can talk about it as well because you are part of that structure here at ETU, starting from the AI task force. And as I know that, many universities, they are building AI task force. And from there, of course, we need a ethical technology review boards. I think that's what we would need.
Hmm.
And we would need participation from, different people in the
Hmm.
institution, like the faculties, not only from one two disciplines. We need faculties from different disciplines, so that how, because it could be very diverse, or how
It
it
is very
gets
diverse. Yeah, that's for sure.
Hmm.
added
Yeah.
or used, or not loved or loved by different faculties and different disciplines. We need student voices, of
Mm.
course, because
Hmm.
they are too confused as well. I feel that, like, should we use it for research, should we use it for assignment, is it okay if we rewrite after what AI wrote back to me, because we need clear instructions for that. Now it's almost like faculty to faculty, they take their own decision. But yeah, of course,
Hmm.
if somebody can tell us that, okay, this is what you should do, that would be great. I think we also need like legal experts, even, I guess, data scientists who actually know how the algorithm is working. They can question, the technology itself, that what kind of tools getting used there. They need to start asking questions, which you are already doing, right? And that's
Hmm.
why I was appreciating you both, because you know once we before we adopt a tool, you need to ask, if this tool actually align with our values as an
Hmm.
institution. Is there real peer reviewed evidence that it actually works, and there is no bias, right? And what are the long term risks for the students, for trust, for oh, there is a fly. Okay, like equity, things like
Security.
that. Yeah,
That's
so
right.
Preached.
so yeah, I think these hard questions need to be asked, because it's not only a tech decision anymore, it's like more like an ethical decision, I feel.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, you mentioned legal experts. What, and you don't have to answer it if you don't want to,
Mhm.
but I'm curious about what the actual legal exposure is. Where higher ed institutions most vulnerable in
Uh,
terms of all of this?
yeah, because first of all, when you are like doing something without knowing it fully, that could create a lot of vulnerabilities for you. First of all, they would risk litigation from the students and from the state regulators as well, right? Like, because
Hmm.
uh, if you don't if you can't explain the tools you have incorporated in your institution, and when that tool gets flagged by the system at one point of time, um, by the regulators, by the lawmakers at one point of time, then you will be a participant in that as well, right? So
Hmm.
I think that's something we need to like kind of open our eyes and try to understand that. And then if again the predictive models we were discussing, if they disappropriately uh, flag the students from certain racial or socioeconomic background, that could create a lot of civil right concerns as well, I
Right.
feel.
Right.
And the lack of consent, I feel that many platforms, they just hide the invasive practices in fine prints,
Hmm.
and they are not truly like consent, right? So
Right.
that could, I feel, that create more legal issues in the future, I feel.
Just a follow-up question. So, like when you say that it flags and it has biases and stuff, so us as a user, how are we ever going to know of those biases, right? Because we
Right.
don't keep a track of everything that it's tracked, right? Like because we have different users in the university for the same tool, maybe it's experiencing a bias, but we will never get to know that bias, right? It's only
Yeah.
somebody who has the whole administrative capacity of this tool. That's the person who can see the data and be like, okay, I see something's wrong over here.
Yeah.
Us as
So
users will never be able to, like, get
so
that.
what
That's
I feel, what will be transparent, I feel, will be that, like, if I'm a student, I'm taking an exam, and I know that this surveillance tool is installed there and it is proctoring me. And maybe at the end of the exam, I see, for example, a list of things which got flagged. I think
like a
students can,
dashboard.
yeah, students
Yeah.
can see that.
Mm.
But then, like,
Okay.
more information in depth, like, this is
Mm.
the basis of flagging
I'd
this
say
particular
intrusions. Yeah.
incident, and then from there the students can have a way to challenge it, right? And then I again, we can't really like trust the tools 100%. After that, I think the
Hmm.
human intervention should come into the picture, that really uh, comparing or understanding the data in much more detail from there.
Yeah.
Right. Now, more follow up. One recommendation has been to adopt some sort of broad digital equivalent of informed consent. I'm kind of on the fence about that, and let me tell you why. And then I'm going to lead the witness a little bit. But I, I'm on the fence because when you read these end user license agreements, et cetera, it's in dense, technical, particularly
Mhm.
legal ease. And so, yeah, we could give the students and the faculty another one of these informed consent forms, but unless it's in real plain language and everybody understands exactly what it's saying and doing,
Hmm.
and once again, based on what you're saying, even the OIS may not know everything that it's doing as well.
Yeah.
I mean, do you think it would work? I'm expressing my skepticism. I know it may be a bias of my own, but
Yeah.
that's one solution people offer. Just give them a chance to informed consent form, sign off on that.
I think you can take it one step forward, not just only giving them like notice in a form of like the policy and
Hmm.
everything. You can also, I think, held workshops or to uh, because this is a starting, right? At one point of time it will become a norm. Maybe we will
Hmm.
not need this much push anymore, but right now it's something we have to educate people as much as we can. And also, like when you mentioned that sometimes those things are written with difficult words, with legal terms and everything, but for the privacy policies by law, it is actually mentioned that this has to be written in a very uh, easy way, so that anyone from any person from any background can read and understand it. So if it's really that hard, you are not actually complying with that particular privacy act. So
Right.
so it
Right.
has to be written in a way so that again,
Everybody understands.
everybody from different disciplines can read it, understand it. And again, I feel that maybe you can like start like a campaign, starting with workshops or
Hmm.
I don't know, like um
Like just talking to
yeah,
faculty, right? Like brown
yeah,
bag
Hmm.
sessions or
And
yeah,
maybe building it into the classes that
or
we were
that.
talking about.
yeah,
Hmm.
like faculty, even like include the students as well, so
Right.
Right.
to
Right.
keep it more transparent. Yeah, it's not
Right.
like we are building a thing for you. It's not like that. It's just
Right.
It's
yeah.
this is our model.
That's
Yeah.
right.
It's black
This is
box.
everything you have to worry about.
Yeah.
So shut up and do what we tell you to.
Learning.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, all right, before we wrap, Indira,
Yeah.
we know you've also been leading a project called ElderConnect,
Yeah.
and we don't want to leave on a downbeat because
Mhm.
I am thoroughly creeped out at this point. But AI does have a positive side, and you refer to it as a double edged sword, right?
Mm.
Yes.
You can use it to help people as well. So, why don't you tell us a little bit about ElderConnect and how it really bridges the gap between the university and actual applied reaching out into the community and the impact there?
Yeah. So this project, I feel that, when I was, reading up about this podcast, that this project is particularly kind of a surveillance flipped on its head, because we are not monitoring people. We are trying to empowering them through this. So,
Hmm.
and we are mostly focusing the elderly population in the community, because
Hmm.
to start with, what happens that we are mostly focusing on different kind of social engineering attacks, right? Like where they
Right.
receive a text message, a phishing email, or the message we were getting quite often um these days about the toll one, like you didn't pay the toll, things like that. And then there is a link, or there is a package somewhere, you need to change the address, go to this link, things like that. So when I discuss about this kind of things to my students, a lot of times they give me a look like, we know already these things, that we should not click on those links. Like, why are you even bothering telling us all these things? But then the same thing when I discussed with the elderly population in the community, in my family, and I actually gave my students assignment to start at the beginning of this project, that go back and talk to your elderly relatives and ask them, like, what do they think about this and that,
Mm-hmm.
and how would they react in a certain situation. So that's kind of how we started thinking about this project. And the whole project, it's a AI driven awareness and support platform. It will be an online
Mm-hmm.
platform where whenever they are confused, or maybe somebody asked them about money, like us in the social media, a friend sent them a text message and asked for some money, right? A lot of times they are ashamed to, or embarrassed to discuss about this kind of things to their relatives or younger generation, or they will not pick up the phone and call someone and really ask, like, what should I do here, this is happening with me. So we wanted to give them a safe environment so they can go to that online platform. There will be like a conversational AI chatbot which will be trained particularly for this, and they can ask their questions and get real time feedback, that this is like, depending on the situation, what's happening to you, we feel, this is how you should react. And then with
Mm-hmm.
that, we will also have tools, like, again, those will be um, machine learning tool, or AI tool, which can actually flag an URL if that URL is coming from a invalid source. It's not invalid, or
Mm-hmm.
it's saying it's from USPS, but it is actually not USPS, it's a broken link. Or there will be another area where we can check if a social media profile is a fake profile or a real profile. So they'll give us
Mm-hmm.
a kind of a confidence level that according to their calculation, 70% it's a fake profile. Because when we look at a
Mm-hmm.
profile, we kind of tell in our head, right? Okay, this looks fishy. It doesn't look
Mm-hmm.
okay. So what if we could train the model the same way, and which can tell us that if it's fake or not fake. Because what I believe, that Meta or any other leading social media platforms, they have their own predictive models which can predict or detect if a profile is fake or not, but they will never
Mm-hmm.
get rid of all those fake profiles, right? Because it's their business. So but
Right.
as a
Right.
user, if I had a system to check a particular profile and get some level of confidence that if it's fake or not, maybe I would proceed with caution. So these are all the AI, uh, like, use of AI we are going to have in that platform. And along with that, we have community feedback, we have interactive training. We already ran a few workshops with the elderly community here, and like, I want to use this platform to reach out to more people if anyone
Mm-hmm.
wants to join with us. So what we are trying to do is go to those places, talk to them, hear about their stories, hear about their concerns, and then kind of train them how to use this tool in a safely manner which could
Mm-hmm.
help them um, in their day-to-day life. And then just spread the news more, so that more people are aware with this. So that's the ultimate goal of the whole project. And me, along with my students, we are working towards that, and it's really satisfying so far. What's happening.
It's
That.
that's really wonderful, like that work that you're doing. And I worked a little bit with you on the fake profile thing, and that
Yes.
kind of opened my eyes to a lot of things, Sean. You really won't believe the things that are going on.
I might believe it at this point, but no, I actually dug in a little bit because I think it's a clear example. We live in an age now where everybody thinks universities don't matter, degrees don't matter, they don't really connect to the real world, and this is a perfect example of how in every department on our campus and campuses across the country, we're trying to find ways to do that very thing, and so it
Yes.
requires a two way. It's a two-way street.
Yeah.
The faculty can reach out, but they need community participation to do it. I
Yes.
mean, when I looked up numbers just in 2024, and I haven't checked the validity of these numbers yet, because now I do that in a world of AI. But one from the Internet Crime Complaint Survey Group was saying that something like $4.9 billion were lost by people 60 and above
Yes.
to
Mhm.
these
Mhm.
types of scams.
Yes.
The Federal Trade Commission, which I tend to trust a little bit more, has said that median losses are at least somewhere in the ballpark of $1,500 per individual.
Wow.
Some estimates, depending on the types of crimes, can get up into the range of the 80,000.
Hmm.
Right, it's crazy, and this is needed, and it's very, very important. And
Yeah.
I think it's just a perfect example that runs counter to the broader narrative that universities are disconnected and they're irrelevant. That is absolutely not true.
Yeah. And
So thank you for that work.
yeah, I think like everyone has a story, in this
Right.
direction that
Yeah, we've
something
talked to
happened to
so
them.
many people about this, and
Yeah.
it's unbelievable the amount of money that people have willingly given out
Hmm.
to scammers without knowing or while knowing.
Yeah. So use AI to detect threats. Don't
Mhm.
use AI for like,
To, to, to,
constant
to,
monitoring.
that's right. To control others.
Yes.
Yeah,
Yes.
I've gotten so paranoid now. I got the notification that my Google Chrome need to be updated from IT, so I immediately called them this morning and I said, "Did you send me that email?"
That's
And
good.
they
That's
kind
how
of
it should be.
laughed. They kind
Yeah.
of laughed, but they said, "No, we sent that email. You do need to update." So I'm paranoid.
Yeah.
But yeah, so is there anything else about the project? I mean, I think it sounds exciting. The students are involved.
Yes.
You've got
So
community engagement.
yeah, we actually have an accepted paper with this project, and we are going to
Nice.
present it soon in a conference in Seattle. So we are excited. So
That's great.
yeah,
Yeah.
Awesome.
yeah. I
I
hope
mean,
that.
Awesome.
that's what we do, right? That's what we're supposed to be doing.
Yep.
So before we let you go, Indira, we want to take a moment and reflect on everything we've covered today, which is a lot.
Yes.
I can't say that I'm less paranoid, but I can say that I am boldened and sort of empowered by what you've said in terms of we need to be slower, we need to be more proactive. We started broadly with things like privacy and personal rights. Then we talked about, how it's reshaping surveillance, particularly in the classroom, AI as campuses and communities. We've got behavioral tracking. In some of the areas I teach, there's a lot of discussion on predictive policing, which we
Mhm.
didn't really get that heavy into, but it's all tangential to the
All
core
right.
stuff that you're talking about, and it's this really unclear line between uh, sort of working with privacy and not tiptoeing into the realm of control, right? I mean, do
Yeah.
I get a that is that what we're and it's getting harder to figure that out. It's getting harder to define, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, what did you take, Bhaskar?
Yeah, and it's interesting because everything's related, but everything's still not related,
Right.
which which is the
Says
human
everything.
conundrum. Right? So it was interesting. Like we explored how AI systems are often rolled out in education under the banner of innovation,
Hmm.
whether it's proctoring software or engagement analytics, without always stopping to ask, like, what kind of relationships are these building with students, faculty, and institutions? And I think we should really pause and ask that question before we start implementing stuff.
Yeah.
And I also think what we learned today is that design choices have ethical weight, and questions.
Hmm.
And the question isn't just what we can do with AI, but what should we do,
Yeah.
and who gets to decide, right, Sean?
Yeah. Or so, did we kind of sum up everything, or do you want to add something that
Yeah.
we missed?
Yeah, I think like yeah, you summed it up well.
Yeah.
But yeah, like again, I would like want to specifically say that you know, just because we can, we should not or we
Right.
have to, right? So just because we
Yeah.
can monitor, measure, or predict doesn't mean that we have to, like, we kind of need to take a step back, understand everything, create our again policies, hear everyone's thoughts, and then maybe uh, go for the next step. And we have this concept called digital dignity, which I really want to mention
Mhm.
here. This is the idea that people deserve respect and privacy in digital spaces just as much as in physical ones, right? So
Mhm.
like just try to imagine what's happening in the digital area if that was happening in our physical life. Constantly someone is like note taking notes of everything I'm doing. It will be like
Right.
it's crazy, right, if you think about it that way. So yeah, so I truly believe and hope that the time is coming, and hopefully soon, that when all our existing privacy laws across different sectors will get a much needed revision, much needed update. And when that happens, we'll finally see AI addressed in those sectors as well, right? So
Mhm.
that's the hope, I think.
Awesome. Well,
Well,
thank you so
thank you.
much. Yeah,
Yeah,
absolutely.
thank
This
you.
Thank you.
was this was
Complicated.
crazy.
Yeah, complicated interaction between technology, policy, human behavior. I think it had everything that will give me nightmares for the not too distant future. Hopefully, at some point, you can come back and we can discuss some of these specific issues in further
Right.
detail.
Yeah,
So,
we we'd
if you
Thank
don't
we'd
you.
love
mind.
to talk more about that, and we appreciate your time, your insights. Thank you for making everything so clear for everybody to understand. Because again, there's so much jargon out
Mhm.
there, and everything's so complicated and complex. And I also believe we need somebody to talk to us about this. And I'm
Right.
glad that you took this time to do it.
Thank you. Thank you
Yeah.
so much
Thank
for
you.
inviting me.
Thanks
Thank
for
you.
All
coming.
right,
Take
thank you.
care.
Enjoy the hat.
Bye bye. Thank you. I will.
See
Thank
ya.
you.
There you
Yep.
go.
There you
Bye.
go.
Bye.
Bye. Well,
All right, that
that
was quite
wraps
the
it.
whirlwind. My goodness.
Yeah, I really like I said, I'm still mixed, but I do feel better that there are professionals like Indira who are saying we probably need to slow down. I like the notion of technological dignity.
Yeah.
Was that what
Yes,
it
that's what
was?
she said.
I think I want to dig down on that a little bit and
Mm,
kind of
yeah.
do more. But that wraps it up for today. We
Yep.
covered a lot:
We did.
biometrics, behavioral biometrics, predictive sort of analytics related to keystrokes and the
Hmm.
surveillance of students,
Yeah.
the tendency for us to just accept these technologies
Right.
without being critical, which I think is absolutely just the wrong way to do it. But we can't get around the fact that AI is going to change how we think about safety, privacy, and control, not just more broadly, but specifically in education.
Hmm.
And those changes are not happening evenly.
Right.
As Indira pointed out, we're not transparent about the degree to which Blackboard even monitors
Hmm.
students. And, we have to give them that option. We have to give them the capacity to understand that.
Absolutely.
We also see that some of it benefits protection,
Right.
others get flagged and filtered and
Yeah.
forgotten. So,
Hmm.
the line between innovation and intrusion is
Yeah.
blurry,
It
right?
is really blurry. Like whether you're a student, faculty member, IT leader, or just someone navigating your life in a data field society. Like one thing is clear: surveillance isn't just about what's being collected. It's what it's used to decide. Right. So
Right.
it's your metadata that's being like stolen from you, if I can use that word, without
I think
consent.
that's an appropriate
Right,
word.
that's one way of putting from it. Like, but then you need to start asking, like, who designed these rules, like who's benefiting from it, who's being left out.
Right, and making decisions.
Yeah.
So, it's we'll dig back in on this, I suspect, because this
Yep.
is a much bigger
Oh
topic
yeah, this
than
is, yeah.
today's episode would allow.
Hmm.
So, well, just to wrap up, if you've enjoyed this episode, you can support us in a few ways. First, subscribe to AI What the Tech. Remember, all caps. You'll
Hmm.
find it on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, or wherever you're listening, or YouTube if you're watching.
Hmm.
Um, Second, if you want to help us keep these conversations going, consider heading over to Buy Me a Coffee. Thanks again, Jeff Auger, for giving us some money to pay for our platforms because we
Hmm.
can't keep jumping from free trial to free trial. Every contribution helps us bring in more guests, research deeper, and it helps us stay independent and somewhat sustainable. I mean, we're not looking to become millionaires. We're really just trying to sustain a conversation, which,
Absolutely.
as Indira pointed out, and every guest so far, this is an important conversation. Whether or not
Exactly.
you want to engage in it, it's important to at least hear the issues and ideas. So buy us a coffee or green, or actually mint tea,
Yeah.
and hex the
Anything
patriarchy.
helps. Anything and everything helps.
That's
Hey,
right.
again, like we just wanted to, we're doing this just to start that conversation, and that's what we always wanted to do, was more people
Right.
need to talk about AI and higher education. So here we are, AI What the Tech. So next time on AI What the Tech, we will be diving into, Sean, do you want to take that away?
We'll be diving into AI and the law. We have 2 or 3 people that we're reaching out to try to see if we can get somebody to come and talk to us about it.
All right.
Some teach classes, some are leaders in AI and the law in the area. The problem we run into is that when summer hits, vacations begin,
Yeah, that's
and
understandable.
people kind of
Check
disappear.
out.
So it may not be next week that we get the next episode in, but it will be in the next couple of 3
Right.
weeks max. Plus,
All
we have the other bigger guests that are coming on that we've already
Yep.
kind of spoken with.
Mm-hmm.
We'll
And
try to talk about.
we're not giving much away about
Yeah,
that.
that's all we're saying. But we want to get into copyright, authorship, liability, discrimination, regulation. Some of the things that Indira actually brought up as
Right.
well.
Right.
So
Absolutely. Well, until then, stay curious, stay vigilant, and also, as always,
stay
stay
human.
human. All right.
There you go.
See you next time.
See ya.
Bye, y'all.
Bye.